Hello, thank you very much again for joining us. We are live on Facebook. We are here every Monday and we start at 10:30. And today's topic is, what's today's topic, Madeleine?
Inherited trapped emotions.
Inherited trapped emotions.
Yeah.
So how can you be born with negative emotions? We don't want it all to be doom and gloom about the negative emotions, because obviously we do have a lot of positive emotions that come through as well. But we want to talk about and how can we help you and what can we do about the negative trapped emotions that get inherited. We are very humble to be here with you today. As I mentioned, every Monday we're going to be here live at 10:30 and we're going to be having a topic, and we're also going to have 2 volunteers where we're going to help reduce their pain down. So for those who don't know me, my name is Victoria. I'm a qualified emotional code and body code practitioner or healer through Dr. Brad Nelson.
Hello, I'm Madeleine. I'm a Reiki Master-Teacher, advanced crystal therapist teacher, meditation and mindfulness teacher, and loads of other modalities.
As I mentioned last week, we do call Madeleine the Oracle. The amount of knowledge that she has is unbelievable. I mean, you've been doing energy healing for how long, Madeleine?
A year. Well, most of my life spiritually, but about a year. I'm also an energy healer.
Today is all about how do we get born with unwanted trapped emotions. What we also like to do every week is not just talk about the energy healing of it. We also like to give you a bit of science, and that's where Madeleine comes in. So every week Madeleine will talk about the science, because you love quantum physics, don't you?
Yes.
And also we'll have 2 volunteers every week, and these volunteers have a pain scale out of 10 being quite severe, 1 being very low, of either a physical or a pain that's going on. And I'll talk a little bit about how we got on with last week. So if you want to be a volunteer, it's free of charge. All we need to know is if you comment below me, just type in me, or you can email me on members@gentleharmonies.co.uk and just put me on the email, and we'll include you on the free volunteer list, won't we? So what did we talk about last week? So last week, the topic was all about what is energy healing. We talked about high vibration. Can you remember the certain words that we use for high vibration? I can. I will. I'm able. You know, a lot of affirmations are high vibrational talk. Then we talked about low vibration, which are things like,
I can't.
I won't, I'm not able, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Then Madeleine did a little bit of a history about what is energy healing, when she talked about the cave drawings and the hoppy ears, which was quite interesting. We then did a demonstration on Laura, and her issue was all about weight. And this came up as a 10 out of 10, which obviously is quite high. And what we realized when we were using the body code, the reason for her weight issue was a physical trauma that she had. Now, this has gone from a 10 out of 10 and it's now down to a 7 out of 10. And she said that she feels a lot lighter, a lot more focused, and not focused. She's not focused on the negative side of the weight. She's more focused on what she can do about it. Then obviously Madeleine talked about the science. We did another demonstration on Liz. It was 8 out of 10, her arthritis to her neck, which she's had over 20 years. And this was caused by internal dialogue of no will to move forward. And I've just had an email from Liz this morning to say now that is a 5 out of 10. Then Madeleine did a demonstration, how to feel energy. Did you do that? Did you watch it last week? Did you do the feel? You know, did you see any colours? You know, we did ask, we had quite a few people email us to say what colours they saw, and we got back to them to say, well, colour means this. So what are emotions? So I mentioned this last week. So it's important that we realise what emotions are. As we go through life, as the years go on, we like a net, we drag all these emotions and they come onto us. Such emotions as laughter, sadness, sorrow, happiness, or whatever these emotions are, they can get attached or trapped within our bodies. What happens is if we hold on to these emotions, as I mentioned, they can become trapped. There is a processing period that we talked about last week. You know, there's 3 ways that trapped emotion can get on your body, that we keep hold of these. So I mentioned also last week about Dr. Emoto. You know, he did an experiment with low vibrational talk and high vibrational talk through thought alone. You know, we're in the middle of doing an experiment with the rice, which we'll keep you posted about that. that through thought alone, this can cause crystals within the water to form symmetry, or through negative thought, it can cause them to become disjointed or dislodged. So that's what we did. That's what we talked about last week about high vibration, low vibration. So what we're going to do is jump on straight away to our first volunteer. So I want to talk to you about that. If you do volunteer, your information is all private and confidential. You don't even have to be here. So, for example, our first volunteer that we have is Jessica, and she's probably fast asleep because she's in Canada right now. So I think, what are they, 7 hours behind us?
Yeah.
About 7 hours behind us. And Jessica's issue is about anxiety. So what we're going to do is we're going to demonstrate how we can use energy healing to help reduce Jessica's anxiety feelings. She's saying she's an 8 or a 9 out of 10, so that's quite high. And she's had this for over a year. So every week I'll explain to you how we use energy healing to reduce those pain scales down. So I'm going to be using magnets. You know, they say magnets are 10,000 times stronger to release any unwanted emotions when you're doing energy healing. We're covered in meridian lines. We mentioned this last week. You know, we're covered in meridian lines, and that's what they use when they do acupuncture. They go on your main meridian lines. So we are just energy. That's all we are. And I mentioned, you know, each emotion has its own vibration that can get stuck on you. So what I need to do is find out, why does Jessica have this feeling of anxiety? So anxiety to Jessica, this is just the symptom. We need to find out what is the cause. So, for example, if you're gardening away or whatever it may be, and you cut yourself and you're bleeding, that cut is just the symptom. The cause is what have you done to your finger to cause the bleed. So let's have a look to see what's going on. So what we always do is we ask for a little bit of help from the higher power, or whoever that is for you that you ask for whenever you do healing yourself, or when you ask for a little bit of help. And then once we've connected, we want to make sure that you are connected with Jessica by using muscle testing. And then we'll find out exactly what's going on. So I'm just going to ask for a little bit of help from the higher power. If I can connect with Jessica, because obviously we've got Jessica's permission, to find out whatever the causes are that's causing this anxiety for Jessica. Okay. So let me just double check. So am I connected? Am I connected with Jessica? Have I got permission to act as proxy? Can I have a yes? Can I have a no? Can we use the body code app to help reduce any symptoms of anxiety for Jessica? Okay, so let's just have a look at this. So the first thing that's come up is heart wall emotion. Now, we are going to be talking about heart walls on a topic just on its own. What happens is when we have an emotion that becomes trapped, that trapped emotion can get lodged anywhere within the body. So what's happened is Jessica's had a trapped emotion that's got lodged within a heart wall. Now, as I mentioned, we've done over 200 cases for various people, and the biggest heart wall we've ever had for somebody was over 100 miles deep. You know, what you have to do with that is get rid of emotion, get rid of emotion, get rid of emotion until they come down to a zero. So heart walls are there to protect us. So there's a reason why Jessica's got this heart wall. Let's find out where this heart wall's come from. So it's from an event. So something happened. There was an event that happened that caused Jessica to have quite severe heartache. Now that heartache can be from a grief of a loss, or from an event, or something that's caused us quite upset. So let's have a look to see what's gone on, why that event has happened. What are these emotions that Jessica's got that's happened to an event? Now, sometimes we can find out how old Jessica was when this happened, what type of event it was, but we always say, do we need to know more? So do we need to know how old Jessica was for this event? No. Do we need to know anything else? Do we need to know the emotion? Okay, so what was the emotion? Okay, so it's dread. So the first emotion that's come up for Jessica that's gone into a heart wall is dread. So let's just find out if there's any other emotions in there. Shame is the next one. So what can happen is you can build up like an onion various different emotions, but because this is just a demonstration, we're just going to have a look for one more to see if there's any more in there. Right, there's another one there of depression. So what I'm going to do now, this is how it works. So remember before we said every emotion has its own vibration. So what I do by sending out my intention, I then delete that unwanted emotion. So the first emotion I'm going to go for is depression. So depression has got lost to Jessica, that's within her heart wall. So my intention is to delete or remove this emotion of depression that's within Jessica's heart wall. Now, depression is defined as this. Depression is a state often caused by anger turned inwards. So it's the inability to feel joyful or to feel excited. That's what depression is. So it's a low energy. It's a negative state caused by ongoing negative feelings. Okay, has that emotion of depression, has that now been relieved for Jessica? Has it been relieved for love? Has it been released completely? Okay, so that's gone. Now let's look at shame. Now, as I mentioned before, every emotion has its own vibration. Now, shame is one of the lowest vibrations there are. What we're finding with what's going on at the moment is with our clients, nearly everybody is having shame at the moment. So shame is feeling that you've done something wrong, something very painful, or feeling humiliated, a feeling of regret. It's one of the lowest vibrations that are out there. So let's just have a look to see if we can get rid of it. So can we please remove shame for Jessica? So my intention is to remove shame, which is the low vibrational trapped emotion that's got within Jessica's heart wall.
Vic's actually working on the governing meridian line, which is the major one which hits all meridian lines, which goes from inside your mouth, across down, right down your back and down under your coccyx.
Thanks, Madeleine. The next one is dread. So just want to make sure we can remove dread. So we'll remove dread from Jessica's heart wall. Can we please remove dread? Has dread been removed? Has it been removed completely? Has it been removed with love? Okay. So let me just check Jessica's pain scale now for anxiety. So is it a 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? All right, so I've got that down to a 1 now.
Well done.
Okay, so I'll get in contact with Jessica later on to see how she feels. Obviously, she's asleep right now, so we can't get in contact with her. Well, I'm presuming she's asleep. So just removing those 3 trapped emotions has caused her anxiety pain of 8 out of 9 to go down to a 1, which was pain within a heart wall. So usually what we find is when we release trapped emotions that are in people's heart walls, they feel taller, they feel lighter, they'll feel more confident and more ability to deal with whatever emotions are given to them as well. So this is all about how can you be born with trapped emotions, or what we call them inherited emotions. You know, scientists have now completed several experiments on how emotions such as fear, PTSD, anxiety, depression can be passed down from generation to generation to generation. You know, look at your family that you have around you. Look at your brothers, look at your sisters, look at your mums, your dads, your grandparents. Is there a common emotion that you all suffer with? You know, your father can experience similar emotions to you, or your mother can experience similar emotions to yourself as well. We had a client last week who suffered with anxiety, and they've had anxiety all their life. They can't remember not having anxiety. So this was a 10 out of 10. So by using the body code app, or by using what we're doing, we managed to find that this anxiety was caused from their female line going 8 generations up. So we found out what the trauma was, we got rid of it, and we reduced our anxiety down, and now it's down to 1 out of 10. So going back to emotions, you know, emotions are just energies. That's all they are. They are energies with their own vibrations. As I mentioned, you know, Madeleine's going to talk about the science of this later on. But some people, they may have problems with having relationships. They may have problems with keeping relationships. You may have problems with finances and always find that you have money, then you lose it, that you have money, or there's some kind of patterns that's going on. So because patterns can be, not only can they become inherited of pains and emotions, but also they can be inherited through behavior as well. So Madeleine, you're going to talk about the science now, aren't you? You like this part, don't you, Madeleine?
Yeah, thank you. It's stopping me, that's a problem. Well, for 100 years now, scientists have been studying DNA. I'm sure most of you will know the term DNA. It's the building blocks of life, basically. Got a quick
Oh, sorry.
image here. Thank you.
This is where I'm meant to come in.
So much more props person. DNA, basically, it's like a double helix, and every single little ball, if you will, on there dictates who we are, what we are, and so forth. Okay, thank you. So the study of that DNA and each little building block is called genetics. So that looks at, you talk about your genes. I don't mean the ones you wear, but they tell us, well, you've got blonde hair, dark hair, you've got blue eyes, green eyes, whatever. You've got the format of your nose, the format of your toes. My father always used to say the only thing I inherited from him was his toes. It's also your height, your weight, everything. Excuse me. Everything about you is determined by your DNA, by these genetics. Then we look further into epigenetics, which looks then at behavior memory, if you will. So many experiments have been done. We don't like to talk about some of them because they involve animals and things. But it's basically with that, it's your behavior, and it also includes, for example, if your great grandmother, as Vic was just talking about it, has a shock, a trauma, it can be witnessing a death, it could be anything. It actually alters the format of your DNA. So then that altered format is sent down to you. For example, we had a lady a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, and she had problems, she had issues with giving love and receiving love. And it turned out that, I can't remember, 6 or 8 generations back, her great grandma had come home to find her husband in bed with her best friend. It's a bit of a shock. And that's changed dramatically her DNA. They stayed married, obviously, because they had children, and this altered DNA went down the line, which is why she couldn't find that she could love, she couldn't trust. It can also change other things as well. For example, if the bedding that great grandma had on the bed when she found them in that position, say it was yellow, she would always remember yellow connected with that shock, with that trauma, and that would alter her DNA. So you could suddenly feel all your life that you don't really like the colour yellow, but don't really know why. There's all sorts of things like that. It's all sorts of issues. You don't really know why you don't like something. I think one was a particular vase, wasn't it? One lady had a particular shape of a vase. It's amazing. It's really interesting. So it's a shame, really. We do family history. A shame we can't do family genetics, family trapped emotions. We could probably do that. We'll look into that. So that's the basic science behind it. That they're now proving more and more that emotions are passed down as well.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, brilliant.
So if you're thinking to yourself, I feel like I've had this emotion all my life, or I've had this issue of whatever it may be all your life, or you're just quite aversive to a certain colour, like Madeleine was saying, you can think, oh, I don't like the colour yellow. If I see anybody with the colour yellow, my back is up automatically, or my heckles come up. That could be because it's not your fault. It's an inherently trapped emotion that's been passed down to you. So Alison, this is about weight, which she's had all the life. Now, when I see comments like that, where people said they've had it all their life, what do you think my first thought process would be?
That it's inherited.
That it could be inherited. So again, Alison, look at your family line. Have you got brothers and sisters? Do they have the same issue? Have you got parents? Well, you will have parents, but your parents, your grandparents, they all have the same issue. Now, when we have inherited trapped emotions, it might not just come from both parents. It could come from just one line of parents. It may just come from the female line, or it could come from the male line. So Alison saying this is a 7 out of 10. And if this was disappeared, she'd feel a lot more confident. So let's have a look to find out why this is going on. Why has Alison got the issue of weight that's bothering her? So she's saying it's a 7 out of 10, but I'm just going to go muscle test now to find out what it is. But before I do that, as always, we just want to connect and make sure we're connected in a safe environment. So whilst I'm doing this and releasing whatever trapped emotions I have for Alison, Madeleine will just talk you through what I'm doing. So if I can just connect with a higher power, just to make sure that Alison and I are connected energetically, and we want to make sure that when we are connected energetically, that it's a safe environment. Okay, so am I connected with Alison? Am I connected? Have I got Alison's permission? Can I please have a yes? Can I have a no? Okay, so let's have a look first of all. So what's Alison's issue at the moment with her weight? She's put down as a 10. I just want to check that, like a thermometer. I just want to check that that's how she's feeling at the moment. So is it a 10? 9. So I've got you down as a 9 out of 10. So whenever you sent me that message, Alison, I've got it that it's gone up slightly, your thought process about it. Okay, so let's double check that. So what is the reason? Is there an underlying reason why Alison's got this thought process of issue with her weight? Okay, is it on the left?
Vic's actually checking an amazing app which Dr. Nelson's put together. There's over 1,000 issues on there. So she's just going through it and just by muscle testing, is it yes or no? It's determining then what the issue is. And it just goes deeper and deeper. It's like going down a corridor and opening doors to find out, well, what is this, like Alice down the rabbit warren, until she finds out the actual cause and then goes back and just eliminates all the issues. It's in a nutshell what it does. She's still looking. Muscle testing, you probably know it as kinesiology.
Okay, so with Alison, as I mentioned, we've got Alison's a 9 out of 10. Now, the first thing that came up for Alison was an entity. That's the first thing that came up. Now, when I say the word entity, don't be thinking it's like poltergeist. Entity just means it's a vibration, and sometimes it can be a negative vibration that's become attached to you. Like Madeleine mentioned before, like a vase, some people can have a negative vibrations from an object as well as a person. However, this was from a person. So this entity is a negative entity, which is from your genealogy line that's been passed down of a thought. Now, when you have an entity as a negative emotion that's been caused, this can cause these the symptoms. So you need to let me know, if this resonates with you, Alison. Fatigue, physical discomfort, negative and mood issues, addiction. It can be addiction to food, it can be addiction to alcohol, or it can be addiction to any kind of negative emotion. Feeling like somebody's there, but you don't feel like can't see anybody, or you feel like you have a non-belonging, a feeling stuck in your life, feeling conflict or resistance from coming outside, and you self-sabotage yourself. We can self-sabotage ourselves with thoughts and food as well. Angry at yourself, self-doubt, mental illness symptoms, and you can have nightmares as well. If you have more than a couple of those, then that's a red flag to say there's an entity going on. So what I did is I wanted to find out, well, where is this entity? What's happened? And it's an inherited entity, ironically, that's got trapped within your heart wall. So similar to what we had with Jessica, she had emotions that went into a heart wall. So Alison's had a negative entity, negative emotions that we passed down, inherited, that's been located within a heart wall. Now, if you have emotions within your heart wall, that tends to mean that you struggle to fully love somebody or struggle to fully love back as well. And you have that loss of identity with yourself. And also what we find is with people with heart walls, that they haven't really truly achieved what they want in life because they're always holding themselves back. Now, this negative emotions that's been inherited, it's been inherited from your mum's line, 15 generations up. So if you could think about that, Alison, your mum's number 1, your grandma's number 2, your great-grandma's number 3. So if you continue that line up, 15 generations to whoever this lady was, that's when the issue started, and she's passed it down, and passed it down.
Kind of.
So what I'm going to do is find out, I'm just going to see, if there's a couple of emotions that have got lost within this entity as well.
It's amazing. It's fascinating when you find out about inherited emotions, just how far back some things can go. without you realizing. But when you clear it, it doesn't just clear from you, Alison, but it'll clear from all those generations as well.
So there's two emotions that become trapped within your heart wall, Alison, from this negative entity that was inherited 15 lines up, which is blaming and crying. So I'm going to see if I can get rid of crying first. Now, crying, what that means, it doesn't mean that you're crying all the time. It's actually the reverse. It means that you keep your emotions on the inside. Now, going back to what I mentioned before about releasing emotions, hence the word release. That's what we should do. We should release these feelings. If we don't release these feelings and we keep them on the inside, that's when they can become trapped. Now, what we find is the personality traits that we find with people who have crying as trapped emotions is they tend to take themselves off to the bathroom on their own, or they tend to wait till they're on their own to have a really good cry. They don't like to do it in public. And the problem with that, because you're keeping that crying in, that trapped emotion stays in there as well. So let me just find if I can release that trapped emotion of crying. Okay, so my intention is to release this trapped emotion for Alison. That's crying, that's got lodged within a heart wall. But bear in mind, Alison, this emotion is not your emotion. This was inherited 15 lines up. So you was born with this emotion. So let's make sure that's now been deleted. So always swipe as many times as you feel it's been released. You know, Dr. Brad Nelson always says swipe 10 times if it's inherited. But I tend to just carry on until I feel there's been a shift. So Alison, if you can just take a deep breath for me. Okay, has that trapped emotion of crying, has that been released? Has it been released with love? Has it been released completely? Always want to know, has it been released for all the generation going up as well? So has it been released for all the generation going up as well? Has it been released for love? Has it been released completely? Okay, now let's have a look at blaming. So blaming, so let's have a look at blaming. This is also, that's got trapped. Now, blaming means that you're not going out blaming people, that people are blaming you. You feel that you're guilty for various emotions or things that have gone on, but you take the blame for other people as well. So what we find is when people have this emotion of blaming, they're quite a sensitive person because you don't like to see people upset and you take the blame of everybody else's. So someone might have done something and you know it wasn't you, but you don't voice your opinions. You just take the blame for whatever has gone wrong. And that's what blaming is all about, taking blame for other people's situations. That's what's happened. Okay, so can we please release blame? Okay, so my intention is to release blame for Alison. Now remember, Alison, this is a trapped emotion within your heart wall that's been inherited 15 lines up the female side. So blaming that, you know, you felt you had been blamed for everything bad that had ever happened to your whole family, that you feel like you've been blamed for everything that's ever happened to your whole family. Okay, has that trapped emotion of blaming been released? Has it been released with love? Has it released completely? Okay, let me just check your issue that we had. You had it as a 7, and we had it as a 9 being now. So let me just check that for you now. So is that now a 10, 9? Okay, so is it a 10, 9? So it's a 9. So it's not moved, it's still the same. Now, don't worry too much about that because that can happen. All that means is that inherited trapped emotion that came through is quite deep rooted. So Alison, I'm going to contact you and I'm going to just give you a session on a one-to-one free of charge. I'm going to contact you because that is quite deep rooted. So I'll get in contact with you after this show to see if there's anything more we can help you with. Okay. So going back to inherited trapped emotions and traumas. Let me just make sure I'm disconnected. Okay, so trauma can be inherited biologically, sort of as what Madeleine mentioned, you know, your eye colour, your hair colour, your body shape, all these things can be inherited, but trauma can be inherited as well. A big part of understanding people is knowing about the different factors that can affect their thought process and behaviour through obviously inherited trapped emotions. So that's our session for today. So I'm just going to do a quick summary of what we talked about. You know, we mentioned we're here 10:30 every Monday to serve you. That's what our role is now. We've committed ourselves at 10:30. We're going to pick a topic, talk about that topic. Madeleine's going to talk about the science behind it. And we also want 2 volunteers. We've shown you how we can use distant remote healing to help people reduce their issues down, or as in Alison's case, it's remained the same because it's quite deep rooted. So I want to investigate that further, because our goal is always to try and reduce that issue down as much as we possibly can. We talked about what are emotions. You know, we pick these emotions up throughout our lives, and emotions just are vibrations. You know, there's so many different science experiments that are out there now. It's the best time to ever be an energy healer because you can back it up by science. We then did a distant healing session for Jessica, and it was an 8 or a 9 out of 10, and we got that down to a 1 out of 10.
That's good.
We also talked about inherent trapped emotions such as fear, anxiety, depression, or even weight issues. Like Alison, for example, those weight issues that Alison's have aren't her problem. They've been inherited from this lady from 15 lines going upwards. And then Madeleine, you talked about the science behind inherited trapped emotions such as
genetics, epigenetics, behavioural memories that they've now found, as well as the colour of your eyes, that, as we talked about, behaviour can be trapped and that can be passed down to you, because any trauma, any shock, anything, it doesn't have to be extreme, but that's relative to you, can alter your DNA.
Yeah.
So then when you have children, it's passed down.
So as I mentioned to you, have a look at your family line. You know, is there a certain issue? A pain issue? Does everybody seem to complain about a left shoulder pain? Does everyone seem to have migraines within your family? Does everyone seem to have family issues, like example, relationship issues? Do people have money issues? And if you find there's a pattern within your family, it tends to mean that it's inherited. And we also showed you the picture of the DNA that Madeleine spoke about. We also then did Alison, which we've just done. And then we talked about, you know, to know somebody is to know about their thought process, which can help their behavior as well. So that's us for today. We will be here again next Monday. And the topic next Monday is all about absorbed
emotions.
How can you absorb emotions from somebody else? So I could be here I am next to Madeleine, and I could be absorbing her emotions. How can we do that? We had a client a couple of weeks ago where she was absorbing emotion from watching the news or watching TV. So how can that happen? But what we'll do next week is not only talk about how can you absorb emotions, Madeleine will talk about the science behind it, and then we'll have 2 volunteers and how we can reduce their pain scale down. So as always, it's a pleasure to serve you, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.